right, what's happening, everyone? Welcome to a brand new episode of VMFC. I hope you all are doing very, very well. This week, we're going to talk about the Champions League. Even though it restarts in about a month, I figured it would be a good time since most of the leagues have already been decided. We know which teams are going to be the champions, and we know which teams are going to qualify to the Champions League next season, and all of that good stuff. So let's just talk about what is next. And as you all know, there are still a couple of games in the round of 16 stage that have to be played, but 4 of these teams have already qualified to the quarterfinals. So there are a total of 12 teams remaining in this Champions League. And what I'm going to do today, I'm going to power rank these teams based on the possibilities of them actually winning it all. And of course, this is how it's going to work. Number 12 is the team that, in my opinion, has the least or is the least likely to win the Champions League. And number 1, the most likely or the favorite to win it all. I like these power rankings, these types of episodes. They're very fun to prepare for, that's for sure. And, you know, we just kind of get distracted from what's going on right now because, let's be honest, most of the leagues have been pretty lackluster. Most of the games have been quite disappointing, but at the same time, we should have known. All right, so what's the criteria for this ranking, you may ask? The first one, how have you performed since returning to action? What is your recent form? How good have you been playing since you went back to work? The second part of this criteria is how long will you be or have you been inactive before the Champions League starts? Let's use Bayern Munich as an example. Their final competitive game before they played Champions League again was this past Saturday, 4th of July. That was the last competitive game that they will have until that Champions League restart. And there are teams that haven't played since March. So that's going to be pretty interesting. And the third thing is your squad. The health, the depth of your squad. Are your star players out due to injury? Is your team relatively healthy? Or do you have any players to replace them? Have your star players have they committed to another team for next season and won't be playing in this Champions League? We'll see a few of those cases in this power ranking. All right, let's start off with number 12. Number 12, we have Lyon. Listen, their season was canceled a few months ago. Their season was canceled. They have not played a competitive game since March. They only returned to training a few weeks ago. And they do have a League Cup final game against PSG, but that's until July 31st. And they will have a couple of friendlies sprinkled in between that final game and their second leg game against Juventus, but that is not enough. They have not competed since March. That's a long, long time. And let's put it this way. If they were to play right now, if they were to play, I don't know, tomorrow, for example, it would get very ugly for Lyon. I really don't want to talk much about them because I do think that it is probably going to get very ugly for Lyon. And that 1-0 lead that they had on aggregate, let's just forget about that lead right now. At number 11, I have Chelsea. They've looked tremendous since the restart. Christian Pulisic has been on a tear. N'Golo Kante is back to that natural position that he's always played, or that he's played the best in. Willian all of a sudden looks like Ronaldinho. But there's one thing that makes me not put Chelsea a little higher on this list, on this power ranking. And that is the fact that they are down 3-0 on aggregate against arguably the best team in Europe right now. That 3-0 deficit is so big and it got so ugly. I just don't see them overcoming that 3-0 deficit. I think it might be a little bit too much for them to handle. And even if it was 1-0 against Bayern Munich, I think that's a little bit too much. And Bayern Munich was, if the world was in a normal state, had they played this second leg, I think it would have gone really ugly because Bayern Munich has been playing very well. And Chelsea, they started to play well. I'm not saying it's impossible that Chelsea makes a comeback, but I do see it as a very, very tough task for Chelsea, even though they've been playing really well. And Christian Pulisic, of course, shout out to Christian Pulisic, the red, white, and blue. He's been representing very well. That's the only reason why I don't have them a little bit higher. If they were 1-1, 0-0, then I would have Chelsea a little bit higher. At number 10, I do have Napoli. Napoli have been unstable throughout the entire season. We know what happened after their final group stage game in the Champions League this season. Carlo Ancelotti was sacked. There's a lot of players that are complaining that they don't get minutes. In comes Gennaro Gattuso, and he becomes a guy that doesn't necessarily, transform and start a revolution at Napoli, but he does bring a little bit of stability. And Napoli has looked good ever since the restart. They got some traction back. They've gained a little bit of momentum. They won the Coppa Italia, so that's good on them. And that also proves a little bit that Gennaro Gattuso isn't only a motivator. He is a good tactician. He is a good strategist. So that debunks any myth of Gennaro Gattuso being a motivator only. And that was a big criticism that Gattuso had even in his time at AC Milan. But here's the thing. They face Barcelona and they face Lionel Messi. Although Barcelona hasn't looked great, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, I don't see Napoli beating Barcelona. I think it'll be a tough task. I think that this is where Barcelona's experience, their slight experience advantage over Napoli will show up, and that is why I have Napoli as my number 10 team. At number 9, I have RB Leipzig. Youth is definitely an advantage for this team. They have a massive advantage. They have a guy like Julian Nagelsmann at the helm, and he can adapt to any situation. We've seen him play with 3, 4, 5 defenders. It doesn't matter. He'll play with 1 striker, with 2 strikers. It really doesn't matter to him. He adapts to any situation. He is very versatile, and he can adapt to any tactical situation because he prepares very well. He uses a lot of technology. He's a modern day manager, and that is a big advantage that RB Leipzig has. But here is the problem that I see with RB Leipzig. The biggest problem that I see with the Red Bulls is that Timo Werner will not be playing in this Champions League restart. He, of course, agreed to join Chelsea, and he will be joining them. I think he might have already joined them. If not, he'll be joining them within these next couple of days, couple of weeks, meaning that he will not play the Champions League with RB Leipzig. And that, I think, is a big problem, because if Leipzig wants to cause any problems, or they want to cause any chaos in this Champions League restart, they need a guy like Timo Werner to show up and show off. But here's the thing. They do have one of my favorite center defenders of this currently. One of my favorite center backs right now, Daya Upamecano. And he's at RB Leipzig as of now because there's rumors that he can potentially go to Arsenal. He could potentially go to Bayern Munich. He can go to Manchester City. They need a little bit of help defensively, but it looks like if he is leaving, he's probably going to Arsenal. So I do stress as of now Upamecano is playing. But if everything stays the same, then it's likely that Upamecano will help that defensive side. So that's one less thing that Nagelsmann and RB Leipzig have to worry about. But it feels as if everyone in that organization is kind of learning at the same time. They're all being taught at the same time because everyone is so young in that team. The players, the coaching staff, everyone is very, very young. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. But I do think that without Timo Werner, without that presence of a world-class striker, you do take RB Leipzig maybe a little bit more lightly than you would if Timo Werner was still there. You shouldn't take them lightly either way, but I do think they are a little bit more dangerous with a world-class striker like Timo Werner. At number 8, I have Atalanta. Jesus Christ. This team is the most insane in Europe. They will put 3 past you in 30 minutes. They will concede those 3 right back, but they are not afraid of scoring. They are not afraid of attacking. They're so fun to watch. But here's an example of what I mean with this goal fest that happens every time that Atalanta plays. They lost 5-1 to Manchester City in the group stage. 5-1. That's that's a pretty big loss. They conceded 5 goals. Regardless of whatever was going on that day, it shouldn't be happening. You should not be conceding 5 goals in a Champions League game, especially if you aspire to be one of the elites. They are so fierce. They're so competitive, and it showed because during this hiatus, we know that their region where this team is from was one of the most affected regions by this virus in the entire world. So they didn't let that get to them. They did not let that stop their momentum. They kept that momentum onto the restart, and they're showing it. Ilicic is still bagging goals left and right. So is Papu Gomez. So that just goes to show how fierce and competitive they are. It'll be a nightmare matchup for any team. And I can definitely see one of these big clubs on a bad day losing ugly to Atalanta. But the thing is that big clubs usually don't have bad days. They usually don't have off days. So if you only depend on an off day to score 5-6 goals and that's your way to win, then I don't know how much I trust you in this stage of a continental tournament. I believe that experience and balance is very important, and that's something that Atalanta doesn't really have. They lack experience, and they definitely lack a little bit of balance, but it is what it is. That's how they play. That's what got them here. I doubt they will change anytime soon. That's what got them to the dance, but I would really hate to see this fairy tale end in the quarterfinals. I hope they draw someone somewhat easy, and they manage to make it to the semis. At number 7, I have PSG. Why do I have PSG at number 7? Well, it's one of the same reasons why I have Lyon bottom of this power ranking. They haven't had a competitive game since March. I think that's known. They have that final to play July 31st against Lyon, and it's a little bit of friendlies here and there. But in this situation, the way that their cards were played, the way that the situation has played out, PSG will depend on their talent and their experience. Guys like Neymar, guys like Mbappe, guys like Icardi, guys like Di Maria will have to step up, and show off. And it doesn't help that Edinson Cavani, PSG's all-time leading goal scorer, will no longer be is no longer at the club. He wasn't starting this season. That's a fact. But if you can bring him on in the second half when there's like 30 minutes to play, I think that could potentially put a little bit of fear in your opponent's heart. But they don't have him there anymore, and that's a big problem. Or it could be a big problem once this Champions League restarts. It's a fact also that PSG has spent millions upon millions of euros to build a Champions League winning team. They've had a lot of success domestically, and that's cool. But they want to win a Champions League. They have not been able to do that. And I don't think they will be able to do that this season either. That match sharpness is definitely not there. I don't care who you are. If you don't have match sharpness and you were out for 4 months without doing anything, it looks like most of these guys really were doing nothing, then I can't expect you to go up against a team like Bayern or Juventus that has been playing for a few weeks now, and Bayern specifically has been playing really good, or a team like Real Madrid or Manchester City who just got into their groove and just, it looked like they never lost a step. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt because they are so talented, especially on the attack. They're very talented, and this could be a big benefit for them when it matters the most, especially in this stage of the Champions League. At number 6, I have Barcelona. I would have them lower if PSG wasn't out of game shape so bad. But Barcelona's fall from grace in La Liga was so predictable. I called this before La Liga restarted. I knew that first place, that lead at the top of the table, was a bit of a fluke. I didn't think that Barcelona had enough to make it all the way to the end of La Liga in first place. I knew that eventually they were going to drop off. And the problems that were here in September are still here. They lack the squad depth in the proper positions. They have an aging squad. They depend on Messi. And there's a lot of questionable coaching decisions. Now, you may be saying, well, now we are being proved, whoever was Ernesto Valverde truther, they might be saying that they're being proved right. Not necessarily. I still think that Ernesto Valverde is to blame for a lot of the problems that Barcelona had in the last couple of years. But Quique Setién is not a coach for Barcelona. I thought that from the beginning. He's not a coach for Barcelona, and I definitely do not see Barcelona winning a Champions League with Quique Setién at the helm. Again, a lot of questionable decisions, a lot of questionable comments too. Like he said some stuff about Griezmann, Riqui Puig, who has been playing out of his mind. Riqui Puig is an incredible player. I think it was Riqui Puig, and Artur, he talked about him, and then he left, not because of the comments, but he just, some of the comments have not been very, very accurate. They haven't been very thoughtful. I would put it that way. So I do think that Barcelona does have a lot of problems, and I will say this. If Barcelona makes it to the semifinals, if they sniff the semifinals of the Champions League, that is a massive success for this club. This club is falling apart. They are falling apart. Those problems that were happening in the beginning of the season are still happening now. They haven't been able to address them. It's kind of hard to address those problems now when they didn't address them in the beginning of the season, and they didn't address them in any season prior. So it's going to be tough. It's very tough for Barcelona. Let's go into the top 5. At number 5, I have Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid has been very hit or miss this season. They've been hot, they've been cold, up and down. You don't know what to expect from them. But what I do know is that in these types of games, you should not count out Atletico Madrid, because these types of games are tailor-made for a style like the one that Diego Simeone and Atletico Madrid play. A compact 4-4-2, good pressing, high pressing early on in the game. They can grind out for 90 minutes. They can hold you to no goals, or they can hold you to a 1-1 draw, take you to extra time, take you to penalties. They're just very solid defensively. And this type of style, whether you hate it or you love it, I know people that'll much rather watch paint dry rather than watch a team coached by Diego Simeone. This style wins you games. And it's won Atletico Madrid games, very important games in the last 6-7 years. So it's proven. It's a proven strategy. It's a proven recipe for success. And Atletico Madrid will very likely use it. They used it against Liverpool in the round of 16, and it worked just fine, even though they took it all the way to extra time. But whoever they draw, they will use this style, and they will try to grind it out. Unless it's Real Madrid, then I think we kind of know what's going to happen. Real Madrid's probably going to win. Or if it's Juventus, because Ronaldo loves to score against Atletico Madrid, I feel like he gets a high from scoring against Atletico Madrid. But either way, I would not count out Atletico, simply because of the way that they play. At number 4, I have Real Madrid. And the only reason why I don't have them a little bit higher is because of the aggregate that they have going into the second leg of their game against Manchester, or of their tie against Manchester City. They're down 2-1. And yeah, you might be saying, well, that doesn't mean much, because we've seen Real Madrid be down 3-0. They come back. They come back and they advance because they're that type of team. And yeah, you could be right. Real Madrid, in this restart, have not dropped any points. They've looked very well. They've looked efficient. I wouldn't say that they look great. They look efficient. There's been some great squad rotation by Zinedine Zidane, who still somehow gets a lot of crap as a coach. I don't understand why. He's a 3-time Champions League winner, not just a 3-time Champions League winner. He won all 3 of those consecutively, and he won a Champions League as an assistant, plus whatever he won as a player, which that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about his coaching career, but just take a look at that. He's won multiple Champions League titles, and he still doesn't get all the credit that he deserves. Anyway, Sergio Ramos is on a tear. He's been scoring pretty much in every game that he's played. They've been solid defensively. They rarely concede a goal. They score whenever they have to. They are very, very efficient and almost kind of grimy with their goals. They don't score often, but when they do, it matters. And this team is a team that has a lot of experience in the Champions League. I mean, it only was a season ago that they won the Champions League. So it hasn't been too long. And they got a three-peat a couple of years ago. So Real Madrid is a team built for the Champions League, no matter who the players are. This is a team that's built for the Champions League. That mentality is always there. And I hate to say this, I hate to talk good about Real Madrid, but I have to do it because I'm right down the middle. I don't have any biases or I don't show my fandom. But here's the thing: if my life depended on it, I would bet on Real Madrid to win the Champions League because they're just that team. I mean, do you see Real Madrid winning the Champions League? It's not for sure, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And that could be your same answer every single year. Doesn't matter if Ronaldo was there or if Ronaldo's not there anymore, or if a certain player leaves or whatever. The replacement's always there at Real Madrid. Players, everyone wants to play for Real Madrid. So, I really wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the Champions League. It's not surprising at all. And again, the only thing that kind of holds me back from putting them a little bit higher and betting my life on them to win the Champions League is that they're down 2-1. So we will see what happens. At number 3, I have Juventus, likely the Serie A champions for the 700th time in a row. They're kind of like Bayern. They just keep winning the league. And once again, this is another team that has been constructed to win the Champions League. They haven't been able to do it, but they've been close. In 2015, they lost the final. 2017, they lost the final. They've been super close to making it all the way to the trophy. And we all thought, I mean, myself included, I thought that Cristiano Ronaldo was the missing piece to this team winning a Champions League. And they were pretty close last season. Had they not stumbled upon Ajax, a team that was just completely inspired and didn't believe anything that was said about them, that just kept moving forward, Juventus would have probably made it pretty far, maybe even to the final in the Champions League. But man, this is a team that, again, I would not like to bet against because of one player, Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo, you give him a Champions League ball and he'll net a hat trick just because he wants to, just because he enjoys playing that in that competition so much. I don't blame him. It's very prestigious, and I think it would be pretty cool to see Juventus finally win it all. Just imagine a final between Juventus and Real Madrid, but now instead of Cristiano Ronaldo playing for Real Madrid, he'll be playing for Juventus. That would be pretty insane. We'll see what happens. At number two, I have Manchester City. As you guys know, Manchester City is, as of right now, suspended from any UEFA competition for the next 2 years. And as of right now, that's what it's looking like. We will hear the final decision within the next couple of days. I think that's what's going to happen within the next couple of days. We will get that decision. But let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that Manchester City has really been suspended. That decision is confirmed. They cannot play UEFA competitions for the next 2 seasons. The size of the chip on the shoulder that Manchester City will have is enormous. It is massive. They want to win the Champions League. And you guys know that there's another guy in that organization that also has a massive chip on their shoulder because he's been doubted, because he's been told that he can only succeed in one team. That's Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola has not won a Champions League with a team that's not called FC Barcelona. He couldn't do it with Bayern Munich, hasn't been able to do it yet with Manchester City. So you combine those two, and it makes a very, very, very strong partnership with those two entities that have something to prove. And also the fans. The fans, they are happy whenever they win a domestic title. They've won Premier Leagues, they won FA Cups, they won Carabao Cups. Yeah, they'll celebrate it, they'll be happy. But what does a Manchester City fan want? They want a Champions League. They've been working towards that ever since they were bought out, ever since that injection of money came in, and they haven't been able to do it. The closest was a semifinal performance performance against Real Madrid in 2015, 2016. So this is really an opportunity for Manchester City to win. It really looks as if this is the opportunity, just because of the way that everything has played out and how they looked against Real Madrid in a game where maybe 4 years ago, when someone else was coaching, maybe they would have completely crapped the bed and they would have lost the game 3-0, and then we would have been disappointed. But this time, they haven't. They've looked pretty good. So we will see. We will see what happens with Manchester City and what a story that would be for them to win the Champions League. At number 1, you guys know who it is. The best team in Europe by far, Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, Hansi Flick. We thought that Hansi Flick was a temporary solution until Bayern Munich found their man, and it turns out that Hansi Flick was the man that Bayern Munich was looking for. He implemented a system with all this talent that somehow is fair for absolutely every one of these players. They're attacking players. The amount of talent that they have is unfair. Lewandowski, Gnabry, Müller, Coman. I'm certainly forgetting. Leroy Sané, who's going to be joining next season. This team is unfair. This team is very unfair. And of course, Thomas Müller, who, by the way, was asked, "What do you play?" And he said, "Well, I play soccer." And they're like, No. What position do you play? And he's like, I play every position. Well, yeah, he plays every position. He's not a great player. He's not. He's just damn good at everything that he does, and that's a big reason as to why he has such an important spot in Hansi Flick's Bayern Munich. And let's talk about Joshua Kimmich real quick before we finish. Joshua Kimmich was not content with only being a world-class right back. He became a world-class defensive midfielder. I mean, how do you do that? How do you play at a world-class level in 2 positions? This guy is absolutely tremendous. Bayern Munich has looked incredible throughout all of 2020, really, and since the restart, they haven't lost. I mean, this team is just this team is unfair. Honestly, they're such a joy to watch. They're really the favorites to win, in my opinion. I don't know what the books are saying, but I think that they are the favorites to win. They should be the favorites to win. And if they don't win, I think it'll be a big disappointment for Bayern Munich. But if they do win it, it'll be very, very rightfully so. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it from me. That was my power ranking for the remaining teams in the UEFA Champions League. Of course, as we approach the actual games, we will break those down, maybe have some guests, talk about the Champions League, and we will do all of that cool stuff. As for me, you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at AlexPerezFC. I have a project called Fútbol de Baúl that'll be in the description of this video. You can follow that on Instagram, and follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Veterans Minimum. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, and stick around or subscribe for more sports content. That'll do it for me. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.